Minimalism is not just about getting rid of stuff. The way I understand minimalism, the angle is not to end up with nothing. Decluttering is only a means to an end. The bigger goal is to be more intentional, to take control of your life and have more time and space for that which you care about the most. So even though I have discarded a lot of things, I am not an extreme minimalist. I don't live in an empty apartment. But the things I decided to keep after I decluttered my living space are items I really care about. So here are 9 things I still own as a minimalist. So these are the Sony WH-1000XM3. And these are really the best headphones I've ever had. When I wear them, you can hardly hear what I'm saying. It's so difficult. You get the idea. I often work in coffee shops or co-working spaces, and these places, they can be noisy. And then it's so great that I can just put on these headphones and block out all these unwanted distractions. So these headphones, they connect with Bluetooth. I no longer need a cord, which was a real game changer when I first started using them.
Power on. Bluetooth connected.
They fit well, they cover my whole ear, so they're amazing. Unfortunately, they don't block out all sounds. They're really good at blocking low-pitch, continuous sounds like a humming air conditioning or the sound of an airplane when you're flying. But they're not that great at blocking sounds that are high-pitched and fluctuating, like people talking or a crying baby. But still, it blocks out most of the noise. The sound quality is great too. When I'm working, I like to listen to binaural beats or calming piano music. And when I'm in the gym, I play more active music, house or hip-hop. And it's great for all those types of music. I love it. So I bought my first pair 5 years ago, and the only reason I needed to replace it is that it broke in -15 degrees Celsius. I don't know how cold that is in Fahrenheit, but it's very, very cold. I was walking outside with my headphones on, and then when I took them off, they snapped here. So I guess don't wear them when it's that cold. But other than that, I still got a good 4 years out of them. And with this new pair, I hope to get many more years out of them. Another thing I still own as a minimalist is this Lana roller. Lana refers to the Lana Kingdom, which is a cultural region in northern Thailand when Chiang Mai as its capital. I lived in Chiang Mai for a couple of years, so that's why I bought this. It's handmade from sustainably harvested natural materials. It has a mango wood core with latex foam sourced from the milky sap of rubber trees. I like this one better than the foam rollers I've tried in the gym. The ones you can buy on Amazon. They're either too soft or they have a texture that I don't like. I use this roller a lot to loosen up my muscles. Every structure in our body is covered in a layer of fascia, from your muscles to your blood vessels. Myofascial adhesions can lead to pain, discomfort, and decreased flexibility. Rolling helps break up these adhesions in your fascia. My 2021 14-inch MacBook Pro is an absolute beast of a machine. I bought it to replace my 2018 MacBook Pro, and I didn't want to make the same mistake that I had made with that laptop, which was to go for the base model. During my years of travel, I had a 2013 MacBook Pro, and that went through a lot. I mean, dust, drinks were spilled on it, sand. At one point, ants even lived in there when I lived on the island of Koh Phangan in Thailand. After I moved to Chiang Mai and I had no ants in my apartment whatsoever there, 6 months later, ants would sometimes still crawl out from underneath the keyboard. Honestly, I don't know how it survived as long as it did. But then one day I got this dreaded question mark. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a nightmare. It basically means there's a hardware issue. I couldn't fix it. There wasn't any resetting that I could do. It was hardware. So I brought it to a repair guy. He was able to fix it by replacing the hard drive. So it meant I lost all my data. And from that day on, I put everything in the cloud as a backup. It still worked for, I don't know, a year. But every now and then that question mark would still show up. And no joke, the way to fix it was to start my laptop again and to hold it at a different angle. And then it would magically start again. So clearly there was some sort of hardware disconnect. That worked for a year until it didn't. And then I needed to replace my MacBook. But it was urgent because I was in the middle of prepping for Q4. I could not go one day without my laptop. So I just rented a car, because I don't own a car, drove to a shop, bought a new MacBook, and it had to be the base model because if I ordered a custom model, that would take 4 to 5 weeks and that's not time I had. So, I can't really fault myself for it. This was my only option at the time. But this time, with the 2021 MacBook Pro, I went for a custom version and I absolutely love it. So the main reason I bought this new laptop is for the video editing. The 2018 MacBook Pro that I bought is not really made for the type of video editing that I do right now, and I can't really fault myself for it because I wasn't really doing much video editing at the time. But right now I make these YouTube videos and it just takes up a lot of power of this laptop, power that my 2018 MacBook Pro doesn't have. So it started to show a couple of months ago when there was this big heat wave where I was living, and the fan, it just blew up. It started making this crazy sound. It really freaked me out. I mean, that doesn't sound good, right? So I had it fixed. It sort of worked after that, but I just really feared that if I was going to push it to its limit again, I would really blow it up. So I ended up buying my new MacBook. After doing a lot of research, I decided to get the 2021 14-inch MacBook Pro, and I upgraded the M1 Pro base model to a 10-core CPU, 16-core GPU, 32 GB of unified memory, and 1 TB of SSD storage. This is the sweet spot for me as a content creator. The 16-inch is too big for me. I want a laptop that I feel comfortable traveling with. And I've heard bad reports about putting in the M1 Max chip in the MacBook 14-inch, with the fans turning on more so than with the M1 Pro chips. I had to wait for months to get it delivered, which was very frustrating. In the meantime, I was able to continue doing basic tasks on my 2018 MacBook, but I no longer edited any videos. And this is one of the reasons why I haven't published videos as frequently as I want to on this YouTube channel. It costs an arm and a leg, but now that I have it, I'm so happy with it. It's so fast, so snappy, no matter what I throw at it. I know that if I had gone for a budget laptop, I would have regretted it, like I did with my last laptop. The way I see it, a carpenter needs a good hammer to do his best work. And it's the same for me. Like, I use my laptop every day to make a living. If I have a laptop that feels like an extension of myself, I can just do whatever I want. Like, it removes the friction between the creativity in my head and the output that I can make with that creativity. But if the machine that I use to be creative doesn't do what I need it to do, there's just so much frustration, which just doesn't compare to the money I would save on a budget laptop. Now, this is very much a personal decision. Maybe you would make a different decision, but on this channel, I just share what works for me. And as a minimalist, what matters to me is that I was very intentional about this decision before I made the purchase. I love the convenience of a laptop, that I can take it anywhere. However, when it comes to ergonomics, it isn't the greatest choice. If I work on a laptop for hours, I'm sitting hunched over and end up with pain in my neck and upper back. That's why I bought this laptop stand. It's a Roost. I think it was a Kickstarter project originally, and ever since I bought it, I've been using it every single day. You just snap it open, put the laptop on it. It's super easy. I couldn't imagine working without it anymore. It's funny, I was working in a coffee shop in Barcelona once, and this old lady, she walked up to me and she said, "I want to congratulate you." And I was like, what's that? And she said, "I want to congratulate you on your laptop stand. It's very impressive." I thanked her, and yeah, that was very sweet of her. Something I didn't expect. The downside is that you need an external keyboard and mouse. I personally don't like to use a mouse. I love a trackpad. So I have Apple's Magic Trackpad and keyboard to go with it. It adds a bit of weight to my backpack when I don't work from home, but it's totally worth keeping my back and neck in good shape. Another thing I still own as a minimalist is a beard trimmer. When I first started growing a beard, I thought, this is amazing. I never have to shave again. But I quickly realized that that wasn't completely true. If you don't trim it at all, like, it starts to look messy. Some hairs grow faster than others. Plus, I didn't have the aspiration to grow a big Santa beard. So at first I used scissors to cut the hairs that were longer than the others. And while that worked to a certain extent, it wasn't really getting me the results that I was looking for. So that's when I got this trimmer. I believe it's a Philips. I put it at 2 to 2.5 millimeters. And yeah, I just trim it. I'm not very consistent with it. I think I do it maybe once a week. I don't really care for like the picture perfect look. I just want to look more or less presentable on these YouTube videos. I use like a manual razor to do the bottom part. But yeah, with the rest, this trimmer, it makes it super easy. If you've been following along on this channel, you know that I'm into specialty coffee. I know that's a cliche for minimalist YouTubers, but in my defense, I was into specialty coffee way before I even heard about minimalism. My day doesn't really start before I've had my first cup of freshly brewed coffee. Nothing trumps that first sip of that black gold and hitting that subscribe button. So if you like this video, hit subscribe and I promise you, your coffee will taste even better. When I'm traveling, one of the first things I check is if there's a specialty coffee shop in the area. And when I'm at home, I make my own with an Aeropress. The downside of learning to appreciate high quality coffee is that the coffee served in your average cafe becomes undrinkable. I find it often tastes too bitter. I only go there in case of a caffeine emergency, and then I prefer to either add some almond milk or eat something with it. It doesn't matter if they have these amazing big espresso machines. If they use low quality beans, the coffee won't taste good. If they do use high quality beans, that does make for a good coffee. However, there's a difference between an espresso and filter coffee. The extraction time for a filter coffee is much longer than for an espresso. So as a result, a filter brew method like V60, Chemex or Aeropress accentuates intricate flavors, which makes it the best choice for single origin coffees. I choose to use an Aeropress over any of the other pour-over methods because it's so easy to travel with. It's light and made of plastic so it doesn't break. I've even made an Aeropress coffee at the airport with hot water I got for free at one of the bars. I did an entire video about how I make coffee with the Aeropress, so if you're interested in that, you can watch that right here. Another thing I still own as a minimalist is an e-reader. I used to buy a lot of paper books, especially before e-readers were a thing. And they would just stack up on the shelves, taking up more and more space. I would barely reread them. As a minimalist, I'm so glad I don't have all these books lying around anymore. I ended up donating them and buying an e-reader when I first traveled to Southeast Asia. So the main reason was I couldn't carry all these books with me, and an e-reader just seemed like a nice alternative, even though it took some time to get used to. And I do like holding a physical book, the smell of it, the tactile feel of the pages. The fact that it's analog too is just different reading on a digital device, even though, it's not like a phone where there's all these apps also fighting for my attention. But after a while, I really got used to the e-reader and I really started to love it. One thing I really like about it is that it's so light. I can bring it with me anywhere. And I have access to many books at the same time, which is great if I'm reading multiple books at the same time, which I tend to do, a fiction book and a non-fiction book. And it's really like what the iPod was for the Discman. I'm one of those old people that used to have a Sony Discman. And that thing was big. You couldn't just easily fit it into your pocket. And I also carried around a CD holder case so I could listen to different albums instead of just the one CD that was in my Discman. So then when the iPod was introduced and I got my first one, it was just such a game changer. I could put way more music on that iPod that I could possibly have on me with my Discman. And it was so small, it would just neatly fit into my pocket. Now we have smartphones with Spotify and whatnot, and that's even more of a game changer. But at that time, in an iPod, it really rocked my world. The e-reader has done something similar for my reading habit. I can carry as many books as I want with me. If I want to order a new book, I could just access it with a click of a button. I don't have to go to a bookstore to buy it and just hope that they have it in store to begin with. Or when I order it online, I don't have to wait for it to be delivered. It's there. What I also like about an e-reader is that I can highlight text in it. And of course, when you read a paper book, you can also highlight text. But what are you going to do with it? Are you going to take pen and paper and manually copy those notes or type them in somewhere? I never did that. And when I think of it, it's just such a waste of time, such a waste of knowledge that I could potentially have gained. All the books that I read in the past, there's so little of it that I retained. So what I'm doing right now is I export these highlights, which is a really cool feature of an e-reader. And when I export these highlights, I import them into Notion. I'm building a book summary database there right now. I may make a video about that on the channel in the future once I've figured out how I want to organize everything exactly. Right now, it's still in its infancy, but I'm already seeing how this can really potentially change my life. Because think about it, when you read a book, you've basically done 95% of the work. It's not that much more work to import those highlights and use them as a basis for a book summary in Notion or any tool you fancy, and write down some key takeaways, some notes. And I just picture myself 3 years from now. Now I have this whole book database, potentially 100 or more books in there. And all that knowledge is still accessible to me because I did that little bit of extra work after I read it. That is what an e-reader can help me do in comparison to paper books. So yeah, I really like an e-reader, and as a minimalist, I'm so happy that I have one. I own this big suitcase. I don't even know if it fits in the frame. And it was expensive too. I bought it to replace my low-quality carry-on luggage that was falling apart. I put a lot of thought into buying this suitcase. I wasn't sure if it aligned with my minimalist principles. In the end, after weighing the pros and cons, I decided the purchase was justified. I was very intentional about it, and I decided it would make my life a lot better. I made an entire video about it called "Can a Minimalist Still Buy Expensive Things?" And it's just about the suitcase. If you're interested in it, you can watch it right here. Now, 1 year later, I still stand behind that purchase. I used it multiple times to visit my girlfriend who lives in another country. When I travel to see her, I tend to be there for quite a while, easily 1 to 2 months. So I can't just bring 2 sets of clothes that I would bring on a weekend trip. Packing is even more of a challenge around the change of seasons. Plus, I need to bring some of my video gear like a tripod with me, so I can continue making these YouTube videos. I think if you're intentional about your purchasing decisions, those items can stand the test of time. It's definitely true for this suitcase. Making these YouTube videos isn't as easy as it may seem. Besides the time and energy spent on scripting, recording, and editing the videos, it also requires gear. Not just a computer to edit videos on, but also the gear needed to record the videos. Camera, mic, lights, a tripod. Now, I don't have the fancy camera gear that some other YouTubers have. I decided to go with what I could afford instead of using gear as an excuse to not begin at all. I record all my videos on an iPhone 12 Pro. Now, I hope to level up to a more professional camera in the future, but for now this will do. And for audio, I use this lavalier mic, and sometimes I use this clip-on mic when I sit very close to the camera, like when I record a YouTube short. It attaches to my iPhone. For lights, I use this cheap softbox. And I've got a few RGB headlights and this LED light strip to make my background look nicer. I store everything underneath my sofa, so it's out of sight when I'm not using it. One reason I started this YouTube channel is to make sure that minimalism wouldn't be just another trend that I would part ways with once the next shiny object, the next fancy thing showed up. I figured if I make these videos about minimalism, it will keep minimalism top of mind. Researching videos would be the perfect excuse to learn more about minimalism. And I just really enjoy sharing the benefits of this lifestyle with you as a viewer. This camera gear helps me turn my creative ideas into the videos you see on this channel. The way I see it, the goal of minimalism is to be more intentional about the stuff you own and the choices you make. Now, for each of these things, I made a conscious decision to keep them because they bring value to my life. However, there are also a lot of things I no longer spend money on. And I did a separate video about that called 7 things I no longer buy as a minimalist. You can watch it right here. I hope to see you in that video. Thanks for watching and take care. Bye. Alright, that's dumb.